Hi guys, it's Ashley Nicole with Passion, Purpose, and Paychecks. Today we have with us a very special guest, Dr. Pierre Johnson, who has recently authored The Pulse of Perseverance. How are you, Pierre?
I am phenomenal. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So you are a doctor, and what's your specialty?
Obstetrics and gynecology. Yeah,
Say that again slow for those in the back.
OBGYN, obstetrics and gynecology.
Okay.
So, and I specialize in minimally invasive surgery.
Wonderful. And can you give us an example of that just so we're all on the same page?
So real quick, I guess, women come in with these large fibroids. So fibroids is one big thing, and in the mind frame of most folks that thinks it's a big surgery, it happens because that's what your grandmother, your mother, they had these large surgeries. Well, I take these small incisions and I use a Da Vinci robot, and I'm a robotic surgeon, and I do the same surgery just with small incisions. So you get back to work quicker, you get out of the hospital quicker recovery time. So it's just an innovative way of doing surgery.
That is great. We were speaking earlier and you said that you've always known you wanted to be a gynecologist.
Yes.
And in your book, Pulse of Perseverance, you kind of talk about your childhood and what led to your current success. Yeah. What caused you to write the book?
Well, when I was in high school and going into college, I always had this passion, and I said, as I went through the trials and tribulations of life, that I always wanted to be a testimony and give back to children that have went through things and thought that they couldn't overcome things. And in college, actually, it was a book called The Pact. And The Pact was about 3 African-American guys that met in college, and they made a pact to become doctors. Wow. And I met my 2 closest friends as a freshman in college, and we all came from different backgrounds, but we pushed together to get to this goal. And so when that book came out, I said, this is gonna be us one day.
Wow.
And fast forward, when we became successful and overcame all of these obstacles and hurdles, and I told him, remember I told you we was gonna do this, and he was just like, yeah, they pushed it aside. At first I was like, no, seriously, we're gonna do this. So we pushed each other, and I pushed them to write, they pushed me to write. We didn't have any ghostwriter, we just wrote, and eventually came with a product.
And so you're mentioning your co-authors. Why don't you tell us a little bit about them?
Sure.
What are their names, and also what do they do?
Sure. So Dr. Maxim Madir, he is a board-certified cardiothoracic anesthesiologist. So
okay. Walk us through what that means.
What that means is so when you go into surgery, the people that put you to sleep are anesthesiologists. Okay. He's certified in very extensive surgery. So when they have large heart surgeries, he is the anesthesiologist that specializes in those cases, though he does regular cases too, but he specializes in those. He's originally from New York, went to high school in Washington, D.C. My other friend, Dr. Joseph Simeon, he is originally from New Orleans. He is also a board-certified OBGYN, just like me. And he, and like myself, he is a minimally invasive surgeon as well, and he does very high-risk obstetrics and does very specialized things as well too. So, and then myself, I'm from the south side of Chicago, born and raised, and like I said, I'm a board-certified OBGYN as well. So we came together and really came with the idea and thought process to reinvent or to change the narrative of the young black male. Because in the climate and society that we're in right now, with police brutality and all of the negative aspects of this culture, is how they look at young black men. We wanted to show a different light and to show that young black men can be doctors, young black men can be lawyers. They don't have to be ball players or drug dealers or any other stereotypical narrative that anybody looks at us as. So
I love that, and I love what you said about the image of young black men. And so I want to talk a little bit about your childhood. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure.
And how you were able to overcome your past to achieve success. I read the foreword of your book, and one of the lines that really stood out to me was that you talk about how society expects insultingly little of young black men.
Correct.
Tell us how that impacted you.
So just, quick rewind of my life. You know, my parents were both addicted to drugs. And I saw a lot, I saw a lot of abuse in my household and saw a lot of dysfunction. And I knew that at that point that would never be me, and that the trials and the tribulations that my mother was going through at the time gave me a sense of not only awareness, but a desire to help. So, in society, I mean, it's when I go and talk to kids now, the first thing that the kids say is, I want to play basketball, I want to play football, I want to play baseball. I remember, when I was 5, 6 years old, I said the same thing. Being from the south side of Chicago, that was my thought. I had an aunt, my mom's a twin, and my aunt, she challenged me. She didn't let me get away with that answer. So when I said I want to play professional basketball or professional baseball, she said, no, you got to have a plan B. All right. And then when I didn't have one, she pushed me until I said, all right, well, I'll just be a doctor. That'll be my fallback plan. But it was important in the fact of she made me think. She made me go a step beyond, because a lot of the times we let kids get away with, I want to do something that is very, they have no control over. You have no control.
Well, they say that, but you're probably more keyed in than I am. Why was that your plan at 5 and 6?
Again, so the Cosby Show was very inspirational, right? So, the only positive, black male role model that you saw on TV was Bill Cosby at the time. He wake up in the morning, go see a couple patients, play with his kids, everything was just great, So I thought that was a cool thing to do. So why not be a doctor? That'd be good. And then after that, I started to understand, what that really meant, what a doctor really meant to be. And as I got older, like I said, when my mom was pregnant with my first sibling, the physiology behind pregnancy and childbirth and that whole transformation was fascinating.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 9.
You were 9, and you were fascinated.
I was fascinated by it, fascinated. And my mom's OB at that time was a black man too.
That's great.
So it just all culminated into this is a profession that I can definitely see myself doing.
Well, representation is so important, and my husband and I started the Kirkwood Foundation for that very reason. It's literally to inspire kids across the city of Chicago to go into STEM, legal, and medical careers. Nice. And really to teach them what that means and what that looks like. Because it's one thing to want to be a doctor at 5. It's another thing to have that same desire in high school, but not know that it requires bachelor's degree, then medical school, then residency, oftentimes fellowships, oftentimes internships. And that process is mystifying.
Sure. And then that's a lot of the times when I talk to kids, that's the biggest thing. Well, how long did you go to school?
How long does it take? Oh my goodness, I get the same question.
So when I tell them that, then it's, I can't, no way. And then I tell them look, you have to spend your life doing something. Time is going to go past.
Yeah.
Anyway, so either A, you sacrifice early for the greater good and live your 30s and 40s and 50s, the way you want to and wake up doing what you want to, or you sell out early, do something that you don't want to for a paycheck that you really don't want, just for the now, and then spend the rest of your life, chasing a dream that you'll never attain.
So at what age did you learn what it would take to become a doctor?
I knew very early on. I knew that you had to go to medical school. I knew that it was not going to be easy, but I always felt that I could meet the challenge. I found out later that it was going to take some work to get to that point, but I knew that it was hard work, because otherwise everybody would do it if you didn't have to. If you could just wake up in the morning and be a doctor, then everybody would be one. So I knew it took some work. I knew it was medical school was difficult. I heard stories. I listened to people and talk about it. I got into enrichment programs early. I remember it was a program called Cadets. When I was in high school, it was at Chicago State, and they took us to different campuses and hospitals and let us ask questions. So I kind of got a feel for exactly what the process was going to entail. It wasn't until I actually did the process till I understood exactly what it was going to be, but I had an idea.
So you mentioned earlier that both of your parents were on drugs.
Yep.
Did your parents raise you then?
So, yes, my mom, not my father. I really don't have a close relationship with my dad, but, growing up, even though my mom was addicted to drugs early on, I mean, she was always a good mother. She was always, motherly. Around the age of 10, it got pretty bad. So I went and moved with my aunt, her twin sister, for 4 years, which was a blessing too.
Yeah.
It had some structure in my life. I moved out to the suburbs in Glenwood, went to grammar school there, and then, my mom got clean, turned her life around, moved back to Chicago for high school. And then from that point on, she was just an inspiration. I mean, she just completely changed her life around. You see my mother now and talk to her now, you would have no idea that she went through those things. But, that was the process. Going through all of that stuff just kind of formed me into the person that I am. If I never would have went through a lot of the things that I went through, I wouldn't be here and doing the things that I'm doing right now.
So how does it look to come out of that situation? Were you a part of the process of taking care of your mom at one point and still going to school? Because I think a lot of people will hear, our stories about overcoming challenges, but they won't know what exactly you had to do and what exactly you had to overcome in order to get here.
Sure. So I was given nothing. I was given absolutely nothing. So when I went to school, I had to figure out. So I'm a barber as well. I started cutting hair when I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and fortunately enough, that did a lot. It helped put me through college. It helped pay bills. It helped me do a lot of stuff. It helped me take care of my mom, take care of my family. It helped me be self-sufficient. So when I went to college, there was no, care packages and all. Yeah, I had one every now and then, but I had to figure out tuition. I had to figure that stuff out, so having that sense of responsibility at a very early age was difficult. You got to study, but I'm up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning cutting hair because I got bills to pay.
Wow. So you put yourself through college?
Yeah.
Did you also receive scholarships?
I did. I had partial scholarships. It was a lot better back then. Like you had SEOG, Pell Grants, and those things. But I still was, several $1,000s short at the end that I had to come up with.
Wow. And so did you have really good grades in high school as well?
I had good grades. The grades really didn't tell the story. I mean, it was just, I didn't go to the greatest of high schools, but, the grades were there. Standardized test taking wasn't there.
Yeah.
Preparation for school wasn't there.
So tell me about that. What was your ACT score?
My ACT score was highest I got was a 22.
And now you're a medical doctor.
Now I'm a medical doctor.
I actually love that because I think that people will see a lower test score and feel like, oh, I can never.
Sure.
If I can't get a 30 on the ACT, how could I pass the MCAT? How could I do this?
But here's the trick, though. So in my high school, I was the salutatorian with a 22. My best friend at the time got a 23. He was a valedictorian.
Wow.
So, you look at it like, you got these kids that, are going up north to school. They averaging 28s, 29s, but that was the best we had. That's because that's what we were prepared to do. I never was taught how to take standardized test taking skill. That was just a tool that I learned and a skill that I learned over years and years. But I didn't know. I just went in there raw and just took it.
Wow.
So they look at scores, and that was a lot that I talked about to administration through medical school, through residency. It's like when you're comparing someone, you don't compare their backgrounds. They don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't care about what you don't know or what you weren't taught or I'm like, this is new to me.
Yeah.
Once you teach me how to do it, I'm fine. But if I don't know how to do it, you can't look at me negatively because I was never taught how to do that. Or compare me to somebody that's been doing that since they were 2 or 3 years old.
Wow.
But they do.
Yeah, they do. That's essentially how they let you into college and graduate school.
Correct.
So you go on to Xavier University, and that's where you meet your 2 co-authors.
Yep.
And how do you all become close and decide to make a pact to become doctors?
So long story short, like when I was struggling, like when I first went out, I didn't even know what a periodic table was going into college. I knew nothing.
Wow.
Right. So I just knew I wanted to be a doctor. And, so that you can imagine those first few months were, oh my God, it was horrible.
So how were your grades in college?
So in the beginning, I never got bad grades in college.
Okay.
So in the first, semester grades.
Yeah.
So you start off in August. You start off in August. By October, I'm getting D's and C's and everything, but those aren't official grades. So around that time, my friend, Dr. Max Madeir, we were in the same classes. So we got to talking, and it's just like, man, what's going on? We need to figure this out. And so when we realized we had a lot more in common than we thought. Like, you know, he's from New York, I was from Chicago, so it's like a sports rivalry there. And then like we were just pretty much, we clicked from the jump. We just had a lot of the same thought processes, and we just start pushing each other. And then after about 2 or 3 weeks after we started, we met the other author, Dr. Joseph Simeon, in the library. He was just there, books sprawled out, you know, he's just kind of confused looking, and we just struck a conversation. And that whole day that we met, like that we came together, we didn't even really get studying done. We just kind of like clicked. And from there on, I mean, we just pushed each other every single day. If he didn't know it, that means we all didn't know it. Or if, you know, if you did bad, that means we did something wrong. Like, so we pushed each other and figured out our deficiencies. We realized that, you know, these tests were not because we didn't know the information, it's because we didn't know how to take tests. So when we go sit down and we start talking and start analyzing questions and breaking it down, and this is how you study. You don't just go and just do the same thing over and over. You need to ask questions and start to, you know, not just regurgitate, but understand the material.
Learning how you learn.
Learn how to learn. Once we start doing that, it just, the light bulbs start popping. And then we just start pushing each other to the right way, with having the skills to be able to study. And once we did that, it was just, you know, it was easy.
That's where the magic was.
Correct. So my grades, you know, I graduated 3.3. That, you know, I started off the first few months. I had D's and B's. By the end of that semester, I had a 3.2.
Wow.
You know, so I mean, it just stayed that way throughout college.
That's great. And I like that you said that, because for me, similar, well, you had good grades in high school. I did not. But when I arrived to law school, I found 2 other individuals, one of my closest friends, Dewana, from law school, and then my other really close guy friend, Sunga, and we all became study partners. And we literally decided we're all going to graduate and work at the largest law firms. We all started at one law school together. We also all decided we were going to transfer out of that law school and go to a top-tier law school. And then we were all going to graduate with honors. And we just supported each other. And inevitably, all 3 of us transferred out to top-tier law schools, work in large law firms, 3 different firms. And we also studied for the bar together, and all 3 of us passed the bar the first time.
That's awesome.
But it was like figuring it all out. Whenever I got any knowledge, it was like, hey, I just figured this out. One of our friends, Sunga, well, maybe I shouldn't have said his name, but one of my friends would actually go to like other people's study groups and be like, gee, this is what they doing over there. Okay, so we got to switch this around. Like, he was like our secret agent. He was like, he would go to these groups like, oh yeah, I really want to learn. He'd be like, no, y'all, they gave us the wrong information. This is how we need to do it. Like, we would just all figure everything out together. And even now, we're still in a text group. We're like, oh, so hard being in this field. And they're like, okay, great. We're doing lunch next week. Like, we need to figure out how to make it out here.
And see, and that's the thing. Like, that's why my story, like when we talked about trials and tribulations, it didn't stop there. So I went from an HBCU to the only black kid in my medical school class. So I didn't have that. So I went from a support system where I got somebody pushing me. If I missed something, they got the notes, they got my back.
Did all of you go to medical school together?
No.
Oh, wow.
So Maxim, he went to Howard.
Okay.
So he had
a support system. He had
nothing but support. He had study groups, he had everything. Joseph, he went to a Caribbean medical school.
Okay. Oh, wow.
But with them, he had nothing but support. Me, it was like a man on the island.
And so you were physically located in Champaign doing this?
First year.
The first year,
then the 3 subsequent years I was in Peoria. First year was a little different. So there were a few other minorities in that first year, but then you split off. So I was the only one that went to Peoria. So in Peoria, it was just, I was just by myself for the most part. And I had to figure it out. That was its own challenge and hurdle.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was
and
crazy.
I hear students talk about that all the time, just feeling alone and also feeling inadequate because everyone around you is so far ahead. And one thing I noticed in transferring to Northwestern, it really wasn't that my classmates at Northwestern were any smarter than my previous classmates at my former law school, but the way that my classmates at Northwestern spoke about the law was way different. It was like with a level of sophistication that I just did not experience at my previous law school. And the way the administration spoke about us as students there was way different. It was like, oh yeah, you all don't need to do this to pass the bar. All of you are brilliant. All of you will pass the bar. all of you will have jobs. Like I remember on the last day, one of the administrators was like, there's only 15 people in this class that don't have jobs, so the vast majority of you will do extremely well in life. I mean, in those 15, all of you will be successful eventually. Right. It was just with this expectation of greatness.
Correct.
And it really made me think differently about myself. Even now when I call my law school and I'm like, I have this idea, they're just like, of course you do. This is what we can do to help. And this is the alum that you should meet. And then they're just unbelievably supportive.
Yeah, so it wasn't, I mean, you say that you'll have that speech and they have that and they realize that, you know, most of the kids I went to school with, you know, their parents are doctors, their parents are engineers, their parents are lawyers.
Yeah.
I have nobody even graduated or went to college.
Yeah.
I'm a first generation college graduate. So, you know, you have that and you expect, the expectation level is just completely, I mean, it's just like they don't take that into consideration ever. But nonetheless, I mean, you know, I don't dwell on excuses. I don't use excuses. I'm a competitive person, and it just made me compete even harder. And I'm just like, you know, if I didn't have all of this stuff and I still can compete with you, then that says a lot. It says a ton.
Well, where did you get that drive to compete? Because there's lots of students, and I'm sure lots of viewers who want to have that desire to compete, but they just don't. Like I get asked Ashley questions, and sometimes it's like, I just don't have any confidence in myself. How do I get it? Like they just don't have that innate desire to go further or do better for themselves. Where did that come from for you?
It was good. I mean, it's innate for me. I'm competitive in everything. You know, and sports did a lot for me too. Competition wise, like I wanted to be the best at everything. But even school, I can remember like kindergarten, first grade when we had like tests and flashcard drills and things. Like I wanted to beat everybody, and that was just my MO. Like I'm competitive with every single thing. I feel that I can be the best at whatever I do. And some, you know, I may not be realistic in some certain situations, but that's just how I attack everything. And that's, you know, you got to have confidence in yourself. So.
Perfect. So you talked about how you, while you were in medical school, my producers told me that you had twins.
Correct.
Tell me about the moment you got that call.
That the pregnancy or that I was having twins?
The pregnancy.
Pregnancy, I knew that was coming. I had that feeling, but the moment that I knew that I was going to have twins, we were in the sonographer's room, and you know, the lady, you know, I'm just thinking, I'm like, okay, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I can take this one kid deal. It's not a big thing. I can, you know, start planning for this. Won't be that bad. And then the sonographer just looks up and says, oh, you all was trying to keep me in here all day. I said, what? And she just, she was like, oh, you know, it's two babies in here. Turn the screen around and there's two little kids floating in there. I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, oh my God, it's unbelievable. Called my mother, and cause my mom's a twin too. And it was just like surreal. And then from there, you know, it was, I mean, it's just so many little notches in the thing, because my son had a congenital heart defect that they detected very early on. So that was a stressful situation. He ended up having surgery like 6 months after.
And this is all while you're in medical school?
All while I'm in medical school.
So when you find out about your son's, it's heart defect?
Yeah, he had tetralogy of Fallot.
When you found out about that, how were you able to juggle caring for your son, being there for your family, and the mother of your children with medical school?
I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, I had to take a step back and realize what my greater purpose was and why I was there, but at the same time still realize that I had responsibilities and duties to do. That's just the type of person I am. If somebody comes to me with a problem, just as of right now, I can have a million things to do. If you put another thing on my plate, I just add it in there and I figure it out. So that's just how it was. It was like, all right, you have all these things to do. You got to study, you got board examinations to take, you got to do this, but you got to go to prenatal appointments. You have to take the kids to daycare. You got to play and do this and read, and my baby can read books and all that stuff. Like you have to incorporate that into your routine in your daily activity. So I just had a whole bunch of to-do tasks and try to get everything that I wanted to do school-wise done, knocked out first. And it was a lot of sleepless nights. Like I would just put it on, you know, so my study schedule would just get kind of put off to the middle of the night. So like sometimes I just stay up from 12 to 4, you know, and then just sleep for a few hours and then wake up and do that. So I cut my sleep pattern to do my fatherly duties too. So it was just an adjustment process that I had to incorporate.
So eventually you and all three of your co-authors graduate medical school.
Yes.
And each start your respective fields.
Yes.
But you now own several clinics, is that right?
Yeah, well, I don't technically own it yet,
Okay.
but that part's coming. I'm in a private practice that's, you know, based in the south suburbs of Chicago, and I have 3 separate clinics. But you know, I work pretty autonomously on my own. But yeah, that's the push to bring me back to Chicago to own my own practice. That was my drive as a kid. That was my passion. I did not like the healthcare that my mom was receiving. You know, going into free clinics and having to wait for hours and hours and talk to, you know, foreign doctors that did not understand what we were trying to tell them. No, I did not like that. So my thought process is when I actually make it to create my own clinics that serve, you know, our communities better, and look at the family structure as an entirety, because our family structures are a lot of is what's wrong with our communities as well too. So I wanted to address everything, and that's still my aim. You know, that was my aim as a kid, and it's still my aim now. So that's what brought me back to Chicago.
And so tell me about the book. In reading the book, what can people expect? And if you don't mind, let me know in which chapter you were the most vulnerable and give me that story.
Got it. So, and I don't want to boast or brag, but I think this book is going to be just like groundbreaking because it has something in it for everyone. You know, I'm from the South Side of Chicago and have went through all of my trials and tribulations, but everybody doesn't have that story. Right. So, you know, Maxim, you know, his parents were married, went through a divorce. And he talks about all of the things that a kid goes through, going through that too, and the change. And he's Haitian, so as you know, a Haitian child going through all of the things that he had to go through as well too. So there's that aspect. Joseph, his parents were married, but he was on the streets of New Orleans doing things, you know, drug dealing and a lot of other different things that, though he had a family structure, he was moving outside of what was expected of him, and he had to overcome. You know, he saw one of his family members get murdered very early on, and it changed his life. So this book just has just a conglomerate of issues, stories, and it just talks about how you can overcome pretty much anything that life throws at you to achieve a common goal. So no matter if you're a 40 or 50-year-old man and maybe want to, you know, change his life to do something else or have a complete career goal switch, or that kid that does not see anybody of prominence doing what they want to do, it has, you know, inspiration for all to be able to achieve that. For me, I guess the light, you know, to answer, you asked about the light or the changing moment in my pathway. I would say the very first thing was during my freshman year at Xavier. I was doing very poorly. I did not know, you know, how to fix it. You know, I knew what I wanted to do, but you know, you can't be failing your pre-med curriculum and become a doctor. It's just not it. You know, so at that time, I just started to go to my professors and say, look, I need help, I need this. And Xavier just had a community of, like, if you want the help, if you want to do this, they will figure it out of how you can succeed, which I'm so very thankful for. And I utilized what they offered. So I was able to go, you know, get tutoring and start to understand how to study and how to take tests. And I remember in my biology class that freshman year, I had a D. I had a D at around the midterm points, and I went to my professor at the time, and I asked him, like, look, I need to get a B out of this course. I need to know what I need to do to study, to figure it out, how to do it. He just looked at me and said, you know, son, there's never been anybody that had a D in my course in midterms and got an A or B out of this class. It's just not going to happen. So when I did it, I went back to him and was like, now you got one.
Yeah.
That was like a moment for me. It was like, yo, I can do this.
You can do it.
I got this. Like, I just believe in yourself, through everything else. You always believe in yourself. Don't let these hurdles and things happen. Like, God brought you here for a reason. It's going to happen. So just as long as you continue to be faithful and to be confident in what you're doing, know that even bad situations, they'll turn around. And I had many stumbles along the way, but I just kind of looked at myself introspectively and realized that if I just work and figure out what I'm doing wrong and correct it, that I could overcome anything.
That's great advice. And I think that everyone watching can learn a lot from that advice. I know that you currently are paying it forward and speaking to high school students and youth across Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you give them? Someone in high school or even younger who wants to become a doctor, but who really is in a tough community and in a situation that they don't quite know how to get out of. What do you tell them?
I tell them that nobody can dictate your future but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care where you come from. I don't care what you have going on at home. I don't care what your mom does, your dad does, your siblings do. There's nothing that anyone can do to dictate your inner purpose and desire and your will. Nobody can do that. And the same way for me, it was just like, they would tell me what I can't do and what I didn't know. They couldn't see my heart, couldn't see my soul, and couldn't understand what my passion and drive was. So I told them, if you really want to do something and you really have that passion, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing that can stop you, because, the difference from being an athlete or something, you can tear your ACL, you can get hurt, you can go to a school that just doesn't get the exposure. Everything has to align itself perfectly for you to make it. Whereas nobody can control your mind. There's nothing that can control that. So if you apply yourself and do the things that you're supposed to do, and instead of going out, you study, and instead of getting discouraged when you get a bad grade, figure out why and overcome that and start doing better. If you do those things and you keep going over hurdle, eventually you'll get to that point.
Exactly.
And you'll achieve that goal. So a lot of them don't see that, but that's just the truth. This is the only thing, or, success, being a professional is the only thing that you can actually control. So if you can control it, it's on you.
Yeah.
It's on you. It's not on anybody else. It's completely on you. And that's what I tell them. And I tell them that another big advice that I do give them is that you can sacrifice now. Your life is going to go past. Time will pass over time, and either A, you can look at it as, I need to sacrifice to get to the greater goal and get to a point where I don't have to answer to anybody. I can make my own schedule. I wake up in the morning and it's not work because I'm happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm making the money I want to make. I'm fulfilling the destiny and promise I want to, but that takes sacrifice.
Right.
And you have to not look at the sacrifice as a death sentence. You have to look at the sacrifice as a means to a common goal. Or you sell out and you work a regular job, you make money, you do, the things that you want to do temporarily, but then you look up when you're 30s and 40s, you're chasing other things. You're not fulfilled. You're not happy waking up, doing what you do. You're miserable. Your kids aren't happy. Nobody's happy because you got to work a 9 to 5 that you don't like.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you sell out. So when you have your dream, you have to keep that in mind, that you're sacrificing to a greater good and getting to a point where you're going to achieve ultimate happiness, and generations behind you, your kids and your kids' kids, will be happy as well, and they will benefit from the sacrifice that you made from the 5 to 10 years that you had to make it. That's what I tell them.
So let our viewers know where they can find information about the book, Pulse of Perseverance.
Yes.
And also where they can connect with you and your co-authors. Perfect.
So our website is www.thepulseofp3.com, P-U-L-S-E, P3.com. And the Instagram and the Twitter are Pulse of P3. The Facebook is the original Pulse of P3. It is called Pulse of Perseverance. And like I said, it's chronicling the lives of 3 young, successful Black men that overcome the obstacles to become physicians. We can be reached on our Gmail account at pulseofp3@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Pierre Johnson. I am sold. I cannot wait to read the book, Pulse of Perseverance.
Thank you.
Please go buy this book. I mean, this is a phenomenal story of 3 men who made a decision despite all the odds and determined that they would be successful and didn't let anything, anyone, or any circumstance get in their way. You don't want to miss our interviews. They are inspirational and they teach you a lot. Subscribe to this channel, hear more stories about phenomenal individuals, and follow us on Instagram at Passion, Purpose, and Paychecks. Have a question for me? Send it to admin@passionpurposeandpaychecks.com. And I can't wait to hear your questions. I can't wait to interact with you. Comment below if you're excited about this book as I am. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.